same-sex marriage. You know, the Supreme Court ratified this across the nation, so even in right-wing red states, you know, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Texas, Florida, if you're gay, you can get married. And Sam Alito is very, very unhappy about this. Now, this is I will be surprised if this lasts another year, frankly. I mean, look at what they have been doing. Look at what they have said. In Obergefell v. Hodges, in that decision, which legalized or decriminalized, however you want to say it, gay marriage, he wrote in his dissent, he wrote, quote, "That holding exemplifies the danger that I anticipated in Obergefell, and namely that Americans who do not hide their adherence to traditional religious beliefs about homosexual conduct will be labeled as bigots and treated as such by the government." Justice John Roberts, that was in a 5-page written statement complaining about Obergefell. In Roberts' dissent in Obergefell, he said the right it announces has no basis, the right to gay marriage, has no basis in the Constitution or in this court's precedents. Clarence Thomas weighed in his dissent in Obergefell. He said the court's decision today is at odds not only with the Constitution, but with the principles upon which our nation was built. Sam Alito, in his dissent in Obergefell, said, today's decision usurps the constitutional right of the people to decide whether to keep or alter the traditional understanding of marriage. The decision will also have other important consequences. It will be used to vilify Americans who are unwilling to assent to the new orthodoxy. I assume that those who cling to old beliefs will be able to whisper their thoughts in the recesses of their homes, but if they repeat those views in public, they will risk being labeled as bigots and treated as such by governments, employers, and schools. And since then, this op-ed by Bill Bloom over on Common Dreams notes Sam Alito has launched into a crusade to overturn gay marriage. In 2020, he joined Clarence Thomas in a wildly emotional dissent from the court's refusal to take up an appeal filed on behalf of Kim Davis, writes Bill Bloom. That same year, in a speech delivered online to the Federalist Society, Alito complained that America is no longer, quote, inclusive enough to tolerate those with unpopular religious beliefs, and that religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right. Now, keep in mind, the only reason gay marriage got approved was because Breyer, Kennedy, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg all voted for it. Breyer, Kennedy, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg are all gone. And now we've got 3 right-wing crackpots on the court who are all Catholic and all fundamentalist. And, Tennessee, for example, just passed a law permitting public officials, including judges, to refuse to perform same-sex marriages. And the best guess right now is that Mississippi law, that Tennessee law that says you may discriminate, if you're a pastor or a justice of the peace or a judge or anybody else who's legally empowered to consummate a wedding, if that's you may discriminate against people based on their gender identity or whatever you want to call this, the fact that they're gay or lesbian or trans. This is just so wrong. And that case, that Tennessee law, I guarantee you, within the next 6 months, you are going to see that somebody's going to sue over that in Tennessee. Some gay couple is going to sue over that, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito and Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch, the whole crackpot crowd, Brett Kavanaugh and John Roberts, they're going to use that. They're going to use that case. I'm predicting right now. Now, I realize I'm not always spot on with my predictions, but, more often than not, I am. I am predicting right now that this Tennessee case will be used to overturn gay marriage, which raises the question, what happens then? I mean, right now we're seeing an exodus from red states of women who are of childbearing age simply because they're afraid if they ever get raped and impregnated, they're out of luck. They're going to be stuck with a rapist baby for the next 18 years. Not to mention the dangers associated with pregnancy and childbirth. So already we have people fleeing those states. You've got people who are fleeing Florida right now because they have trans kids. This is happening in a couple of states that are criminalizing, gender-affirming care to children. And these people are leaving these states. It's like America's going through this sorting right now. We kind of went through this in the 60s and 70s around race and schools, the whole forced bushing thing. And there was a noticeable increase in the essentially resegregation of America. I mean, I remember at the peak of this was during the Reagan presidency. It was 1982, I believe, might have been 83, that Louise and I moved to Georgia, from New Hampshire. We moved down to Georgia. And Louise went out looking for houses. We both went down independent of each other we had a real estate agent to look around. And this real estate agent picked Louise up. They had never met before. And her first question to Louise was, do you want to see houses in whites-only neighborhoods exclusively? Or are you willing to look at mixed neighborhoods? At which point Louise said, well, really, I'd like a different real estate agent. But that was, that was the way it was. So are we going to see now, we've seen this kind of racial sorting of America, then we've seen this, sorting around trans issues. We're seeing, sorting, each one of these issues is causing, you've also got, up in Idaho right now, you've got a bunch of wealthy libertarians who have bought a bunch of land on the northwest side of Idaho. They're also trying to take over the northeastern side of Oregon and turn it into one giant new state. They're leaving other states to go to Idaho to try to turn Idaho into a libertarian paradise. How far does this go? And when the Supreme Court finally says, no, gay marriage, we're going to overturn that. What's going to happen, of course, is that blue states will recognize gay marriages and red states will say, we don't recognize this anymore, you're not married. At which point married couples, particularly married couples with kids, are going to be in a whole world of hurt. If you're in Mississippi or Texas or Florida or something like that, and suddenly you can't claim tax deductions, you can't sign for your kids, you can't go to the hospital with them. All those things, all those parental rights just vanish because you're not married anymore. You're no longer that child's parent. This is nuts. I realize I use that word too much, but this is our time, right? This is where we're at right now in America, and this is what's going on.